traditional procedures that we used in preparing animals, monkeys, to be involved in learning studies led us not to ask many questions about what the consequences of those traditional preparation procedures would be and how they would impact the animals. And a very important, I would say this would be as close to Paul on the road to Damascus as anything that happened to me in my life. This veterinarian that I mentioned to you, Brett Snyder, well, I was consulting with him because I was trying to get monkeys to do this task where they'd be in a cage and there would be lights that they would have to track, you know, and we wanted to study short-term memory and the effects of drugs on short-term memory. And the problem was the monkeys wouldn't do the task. You know, we could shape them up to a particular period of time, up to a particular point, and then they would stop. They wouldn't work. And so I was decreasing their weight like that, like any person would do in a situation like that. Well, they're not hungry. They're not motivated, as it were, to participate in the study. So you have to reduce their weight and make them a little hungrier, let them, you know, find supplementary food while they were working in the experiment. And that was, well, it just wasn't working. And I kept on reducing these monkeys' weight a little bit at a time. And I called this veterinarian, Brett Snyder, who had recently joined the university staff. And he came over and I said, well, I'm doing this deprivation reduction. It's not working. I want to do a little bit more of it. So I want you to teach me about what I should look at so I didn't repeat the problem with the rat I had seen starve to death. And so I was asking for clinical information. What do I look for? You know, when have I gone too far? And so on and so forth. And and he did help me with that. He developed a diagram that I could use to measure different adipose points on a monkey's body, and I could rate it, and at what point it would appear that I'd gone too far or was approaching going too far. But the other thing he said to me was, he said, let me ask you this, Dr. Gluck. He was very careful about how he addressed me in this issue. And he said, let me ask you this question. What do you think happens when you have decreased this animal's weight to the point it would eat nails, if that's what you were serving it? Don't you think that you have basically decorticated it? Is it still a monkey working at such a primitive level of motivation? And I thought, what a question. Again, traditional procedures blocking this kind of more interpretive concern. And he was right. I mean, then he said to me, he said, don't you think there's nothing wrong with the monkey? There's something wrong with your test. He said, don't you think you're presenting it a test? This test doesn't mean anything to a monkey cognitively. You have to come up with a test that means something to the monkey and who it is as a species. And in this very professional and way, he was telling me, you know, you don't know anything about monkeys, do you? You know, you don't know about them except what their numbers are and that they're in the cages over there, and and you use them. You really don't understand a monkey cognition, do you? This was a very powerful effect on me because he was right. I didn't. Now, I would say Harry Harlow knew about monkey cognition because he had developed a test apparatus in the 1940s called the Wisconsin General Test Apparatus that monkeys love to work I mean, they really did. But yeah, that one had me on my heels. I don't think I ever got off my heels, actually, after that interaction. And I realized something about veterinarians, how important they were to have in the lab. But veterinarians like this guy Snyder, who would challenge you about what you were doing, not just make a project go on, not just help you get over some infectious diseases that might be interfering with your research. That's important, of course, but he wouldn't limit himself to that kind of job description. He did that, but he also felt if he had questions, experimental questions to ask about, that was an important part of his job. And I'm sure lucky he felt that way.